And as we know, the finish of that 2007 World Cup final was just an absolute farce.
Because the game's not over.
It's classic officialdom gone mad.
The 2007 Cricket World Cup will always be remembered for many wrong reasons, but what happened at the end of the final can only be described as straight up embarrassing.
We're moving further and further into night. Nobody can see anything.
Dark.
And even resulted in the umpires getting suspended.
Classic umpiring this from Alim Dar and Steve Buckner.
The 2007 World Cup took place in the West Indies, but the crowds lacked the Caribbean flavour that we all know and love, because locals couldn't even afford the overpriced tickets. No music was allowed in the stadiums, and hotels were ridiculously overpriced. Unfortunately, the time zones also meant that many matches were played during the early hours of the morning in many countries. But from a cricket point of view, we saw some epic moments, including Lasith Malinga becoming the first bowler in ODIs to take 4 wickets in 4 consecutive balls.
For Sri Lankans with 2 good strikes. Gone! 4 and 4.
Brilliant. Whoever would have thought that this could possibly happen?
Ireland came to the party in a big way, which was great to watch. But when favourites India and Pakistan fell out in only the first round, it became clear that this was no ordinary World Cup.
Historic pictures. Ireland had beaten Pakistan and beaten them out of this World Cup.
And not to mention the sudden and mysterious death of Pakistan coach Bob Woolmer during the tournament.
The pathologist report states that Mr. Woolmer's death was due to asphyxia as a result of manual strangulation.
Australia came face to face with Sri Lanka for the final showdown at the Kensington Oval in Barbados, but rain delayed the start of the match by a frustrating 3 hours. The 50-over match was reduced to 38 overs per innings, with Australia batting first.
And here we go, the 9th World Cup final. Kensington Oval in Barbados.
And we witnessed one of the most epic, record-breaking innings in World Cup finals history by Adam Gilchrist, smashing 149 runs off 104 balls.
Yes! A World Cup 100 to savour!
With a squash ball stuffed into his batting glove.
It's got a lot of exposure because, I wave my hand around like a bit of a pork chop on TV.
Australia scored 281 for 4 in their 38 overs, and Sri Lanka responded with a good recovery after a shaky start, with Jayasuriya and Sangakkara keeping Sri Lanka in the game. Another rain interruption reduced the overs and the target again, but Sri Lanka never got back on their feet after the interruption, while the ground became darker and darker by the minute under heavy clouds and with no floodlights at the Kensington Oval.
We're moving further and further into night. The time in Barbados is just before 25 minutes past 6.
Very dark out there.
Still needing 64 runs off 18 balls with only 3 wickets in hand, the result became crystal clear.
They have this World Cup in the bag and they thoroughly deserve it.
The light quickly became so bad that the umpires had no choice but to offer the light to the batters. And with a deteriorating bad light and near impossible chance of victory, the Sri Lankan batters accepted their fate and agreed to end the match.
The light has been offered to the batsmen who seem to have taken it. Australia have won the World Cup of 2007.
Australia burst out in a roaring and well-deserved celebration, winning the World Cup for the 3rd consecutive time. The crowd went crazy and manic celebrations were underway, while the ground staff quickly carried the presentation stage onto the field. But then something happened that Ricky Ponting later said he was sure had to be a joke.
I remember the umpires coming to me on the field saying, we've got to come back and finish this game tomorrow.
Now what is Alim Dar saying? Alim Dar is in the midst of the Australian team.
The umpires suddenly interrupted the Aussie celebrations to inform them that the match is not yet over and that they have to come back the next day to finish the match.
You just need a bit of common sense to prevail. But no, the umpires will go by the book.
It just didn't make sense. The match was over and decided by the Duckworth-Lewis method, and both teams understood and accepted that.
Once 20 overs are done, that's game done. That was all you needed to complete a game.
Why would you come back for 10 minutes to finish a match that's clearly and convincingly been won by Australia? What about the thousands of fans, the hundreds of staff members, TV crew and commentators that all have to come back for a few minutes tomorrow morning?
I guarantee you one thing, I won't be able to find half my players tomorrow because we all know we've won the game. They'll be out celebrating, I won't be able to we won't be able to play.
Captains Mahela Jayawardene and Ricky Ponting came together on the field and both agreed that this was ridiculous. But the umpires were persistent that the game was not yet officially completed. Both captains agreed and decided to rather get back onto the field and finish the game tonight.
They'd agreed to come out and face the last couple of overs, which was just literally, I mean, you got no idea how dark it was. Pitch black.
With the ground getting darker and darker by the second. The ground staff quickly had to remove the stage from the field again and brought the stumps back out.
Glenn McGrath's got to put his stump back. Ricky Ponting's got to give the ball back, and we've got to get on with the game.
By this time it was already so dark that Ponting made a gentleman's agreement to only bowl slow for the batter's safety.
Just lobbing down off spinners because you wouldn't have been able to see anything else.
We're having to work off the monitor that we've got in the commentary box because we certainly can't see anything out in the middle. It's only because the cameras are able to enhance the light that we're able to have these pictures.
The final 3 overs were merely an unnecessary and frustrating formality, with everyone looking on in absolute disbelief. The Aussies bowled as slow as possible to avoid any unnecessary injuries, with the commentators fuming at the ridiculous scenes that were playing out on the international cricket stage.
The trouble is this leaves an awful taste, not just for the game of cricket, but for the team that have won the tournament.
When the last ball was eventually bowled, the Aussies got to celebrate their incredible 3rd consecutive World Cup win again.
And that finally is that. Australia have won the World Cup of 2007.
The ground staff brought the stage onto the field again, and the final presentation was done in almost complete darkness.
It's just a shame that the tournament ended in such farcical circumstances.
So it was a farcical end to what was a pretty good tournament.
Many questions were asked about this fiasco, and the ICC released a harsh statement to announce that all the umpires involved, including the match referee, misinterpreted the laws and made a mistake. And all of them were suspended from the T20 World Cup later that same year. It's difficult to understand how such an experienced team of international umpires could get this wrong so bad, and in the final of the biggest cricket event in the world. When the batters were offered the light and left the field, everybody understood that the game was done and Australia had comfortably and fairly won according to the Duckworth-Lewis method. Why would you host a World Cup final at a ground without floodlights? And if so, why not start the match early enough to avoid running into light problems? Unfortunately, this embarrassing ending left a bitter taste to the 2007 World Cup, but many lessons were learned and mistakes were corrected in the following tournaments. Tell me what embarrassing cricket moment you remember, and subscribe for more cricket content just like this.
It's classic officialdom gone mad. Classic umpiring this from Aleem Dar and Steve Buckner.